things that are not supported. You can read-write data just like traditional records, but there's no reporting on this one, simply because it doesn't scale and the records don't always have the same shape. You cannot enable reporting on Salesforce side when you use DynamoDB. Now, talking about the second type of database, the second one is called Athena. And Athena essentially has a number of components that essentially transforms your SQL queries into SQL, traditional SQL. So this is provided as part of the adapter. There's a little translator there which translates your request and ends up as SQL. Now, Athena is interesting because it's not exactly like a traditional relational database. There is also some metadata being configured in S3 buckets. So I don't know if you're familiar with S3. This is part of the AWS ecosystem, and S3 essentially is file storage. So the S3 part helps you basically describe the metadata of your table structure, and it's underneath the hood. It helps you write and read your data. But there are some constraints when we work with Salesforce Connect, is that this kind of interface with Salesforce Connect is only read-only. Sorry, so you cannot write to it, and the reason behind this is that the way you can write to S3 databases or storage is not transactional, so it's something that is not easy to interact with in the context of a database operation. So it's good for storing data lakes or even also audit logs, but you can't write to Amazon Athena from Salesforce using Salesforce Connect. And you do have access to reporting. On this one, it's easy, you can use it. Finally, the last option, and I think that's the one probably the most flexible, but it's a bit also requiring a bit more setup. That's our GraphQL adapter. So how does this work? For the GraphQL adapter, we expose a service on the AWS side that exposes a GraphQL endpoint. We use something called AppSync. That's one of the services of AWS, and a Lambda, which will help us expose this endpoint. And behind this GraphQL endpoint, we have something called Amazon RDS. RDS stands for Relational Database Service, and actually behind this is a traditional database. In the case of our GraphQL adapter, for now, we only support a Postgres database, typical Postgres database, and this is called in the AWS ecosystem, it's called Amazon Aurora, but it's Postgres. So if you've used Postgres on Heroku or even locally on your machine, this is Postgres behind the scene. That's the thing that is a bit hard with AWS. They all have fancy names for things, but behind the scenes, it's just Postgres. And with Postgres, you can do read-write, you can do transactions, you can do reporting, so it's probably the most flexible to use, and that's probably scaling quite a lot, but maybe not as much as DynamoDB or Athena. So if you have a large amount of data, that's a consideration to take, and you may not want to go with GraphQL adapter. I said we now support Amazon Aurora or Postgres, but there are more than this type of database. There are actually almost all the different type of relational database, so MySQL, MariaDB, all kind of relational databases under RDS. For now, our GraphQL adapter only works with Aurora, but there's a set of roadmap items on the Salesforce Connect adapter to extend the support to additional relational databases on the AWS side. So this is just a start. We're starting with Aurora or Postgres, and later on we'll allow you to have more databases behind the GraphQL adapter. So that's in a nutshell how you can directly use AWS data within Salesforce and how you can push your data back. Now that we've seen this, we're going to go into the second part of the presentation, and we're going to talk more about event-driven integrations. So this is a whole different philosophy, different set of architecture. It has different use case, different advantages, and one thing worth noting is that you can use both of these type of architectures. It's not necessarily an exclusion. You can use Salesforce Connect and also use event-driven integrations. Both work fine together. So what do I mean by event-driven integration? So there are two features essentially in the Salesforce ecosystem which lets you do event-driven integration. These are platform events and change data capture. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but in a nutshell, platform events are kind of like an object, but you have to fire this event. You have a schema, like a custom object, a schema with custom fields. You declare the structure, and then you can fire it on our event bus. This is an event, so the data is not persisted. You fire the event, and if someone is listening to the event bus, they will catch the event and they can exploit this data. Platform events are great because they can be used from within Salesforce, but also from third-party platforms. And what we're going to look at now is how we can use those platform events on the AWS side. The other thing that you can use also is change data capture. And change data capture is a bit like a platform event, except you cannot control when you fire this event. It's automatically fired each time a record in the Salesforce database is updated, modified, deleted, or created. So that's how it works. Right. Now let's talk really about our integration. Then we have bidirectional integration, and there are a number of components that I'm going to talk about to support this. On the Salesforce side, it's called Event Relay, so that's the Salesforce name. And on the Amazon side, it's called Event Bridge. So it's the two parts that connects together. How does this work? On this side, you have the Salesforce database. You have your typical services like Apex, Flow, etc. And you have the Salesforce event bus. The event bus is what is responsible for firing and receiving the platform events or the change data capture events. So the configuration goes in two ways. First, you can establish communication between Salesforce and AWS, and you can also do the same thing the other way around. You're not forced to do bidirectional setup. You can only do half of it. You can decide only to do event relay, so coming from Salesforce to AWS, or only do AWS from Salesforce. The two of them are separate. Because when you want to fire events back from AWS, we use a different technique. So let me just first give you an overview about the first route. The first route is sending an event from Salesforce into AWS. To do that, we use something called Event Relay, and Event Relay helps us to connect to AWS. And there are a number of things you have to configure on the AWS side. And to talk to this event bus on the AWS side called Event Bridge, you have first to establish something called a event partner source. A partner event source, sorry. And this is just a small component that is easy to configure that tells AWS you're talking to Salesforce. So set of configuration, easy to use. And behind the scene, there's the AWS events bus that can integrate with the other Amazon services, whether it is like a Lambda or anything else. So that's the standard way for them to use an event bus. On the other way around, if you want to fire an event from AWS back into Salesforce, you also use the event bus and event bridge, but you have to specify an API destination. So in fact, what it happens behind the scene is that you're going to do a REST API call to create an event on Salesforce bus. So you can fire a platform event, essentially, thanks to this. I'll show you a little demo next. But first, before showing you the demo, I'm going to show you a bit what is required to do to set up this environment. So first route, sending events from Salesforce to Event Bridge. How does this work? First, you have to declare your platform event, or we use a change data capture event. You have to create a custom event channel. So this is a bit of metadata that can group different events together. In a simple scenario, we can just say a single event channel with just one platform event or just one change data capture event. Now, as I said, you can have multiple members, so you can group maybe 10 different platform events into a custom event channel, but the bare minimum is just to have one channel with one member that links with your event. So you start by doing this, bit of configuration. Then you create a name credential. I specify here this is a legacy version of the name credential, not the next-gen version. It's fairly easy to set up. You just have to specify basically some information related to your AWS account. So this lets you connect to your AWS account. Then we're going to talk more about the AWS side of things. On the AWS side of things, you have to declare an event bus. So just a bunch of click in the AWS console. And for this event bus, you register a partner event source. Think of it like a bit like a connected application on the Salesforce side. You're specifying a source. Here, Salesforce is already pre-registered, so it automatically fills a number of fields for you. You just have to finish the configuration yourself with a few more information. Once you have this, it's easy. You can create something called an event relay and set up in Salesforce by linking those three things together. You link the custom event channel you've defined, you link the name credential and the partner event source, and that's it. You have a way to receive events on the AWS side of things. So it's actually something that it seems a bit complicated looking at this graph, but it's something you can do, in fact, in about 10 minutes. So no code required, very easy to set up. The only thing that is a bit tricky, but I have to give you a little warning about, is the custom event channel. Unfortunately, there is no user interface and setup to do this. So you have to use the metadata API or the tooling API. The good thing is that we prepared a little set of helper requests on the Postman Salesforce collection we assembled. So there are some request templates for you to do this. So essentially, you have a bunch of JSON requests which are pre-filled. You just have to change the name of your events there, and you can go with this very easily. If you haven't checked out this collection, check it out. It's very useful. There are about 200 more Salesforce requests in this Postman collection. It's called the Salesforce Platform APIs collection. And under the, well, it's a bit small on this screen, but under the Events Platform folder, you'll have a number of requests that let you create easily those custom event channels. So that's the only tricky part really in the setup. That's the part we need to create the metadata for the custom event channel. But the rest is all clicks. So now that we've seen sending events from Salesforce to AWS, we're going to go and take a look at the other way around, sending events from AWS back into Salesforce. To do that, we also use Event Bridge, and we start from our event bus. From our AWS event bus, we're going to create an API destination. So we're going to say we want to hit a particular REST endpoint on our Salesforce org. And this REST endpoint is simply the endpoint that lets you create an S object, because you create a platform event just like you would create an S object. So it's under services, data, and S object API. And then you specify the name of your custom platform event that you want to fire. You also specify a connection. So this is what helps with the authentication. And to do that, you also create a connected app on the Salesforce side. So you have to handle secret to authenticate with your Salesforce org. And after that, you relate the API destination with your event bus thanks to something called a rule. And this rule will tell you whenever you receive something on your event bus, where you route it. So essentially, you receive an event on your AWS event bus. With the rule, you'll route it to the API destination. So transforming an event on the AWS side into a REST API call that creates a platform event on the Salesforce side. Very simple, in fact. So that's it. Before I jump into the final slides, I have a few minutes left, so I'm just going to show you very quickly how this works. On the Salesforce setup side, you have to create the event relay, so it's a bunch of configuration fields. Right now it's running for me, so I'm not going to show it too much. But what I want to show you now is how you can create those events. So I'm going to use a little tool I built, which is something very convenient. It's called the Streaming Monitor. That's the Lightning Web Component app I used. This is just to show you the events coming in. So I'm going to register to a platform event. I'm going to subscribe to one of my platform events so that you can see it. I've created a sample platform event with just a message field. So I'm subscribing to this in advance so that we can see the event coming up there. Now that I'm subscribed, I'm going to start by sending the event on the AWS side. On the AWS side, this is my AWS console. I've created an events bus, and there are two of them. There's a default event bus. Let me actually zoom in a bit for you. There is a default event bus, and there is a partner source. For my demo, I'm going to start by firing an event on my default bus. I need to copy my identifier from my event bus, and I'm going to click Send Event. So this is just a default, kind of a debug scenario. You wouldn't use this normally, but I'm going to do that. For the event source, I'm going to just type something random here. For the detail type, I need to type the name of my platform event. So in my case, my event is called, typing with one hand is not easy. So it's a sample platform event. And when we're talking about platform events, it's __e. And this platform event is very basic. It just has one field. I'm going to type it in here. It has only a message field, so __c, because it's a custom field. And I'm going to type hello from AWS. This here is what I would need to manually test the event. And once I'm done, I can just click Send. And if everything goes well, on this side, yes. You see this little banner here? It just told me that I received a platform event. And if I click on the platform event, I can see, well, maybe a bit small here again. But you can see my message here with my custom metadata. So what I shared with you today was how you can fire this platform event from AWS and receive it on the Salesforce end. Now, if I want to do the other thing the other way around, I can also do it. So using this little tool, I can also fire a platform event. So I'm going to create a custom platform event, type sample, and I'm going to write a little bit of JSON, just like I did before. Another message. Hello from Salesforce. hello Salesforce, that's going to be nice enough. There we go. I'm going to publish it from here. And next, I'm going to go now. Of course, I receive it also, but let me now jump into the AWS console. When I'm on the AWS console, I can look at my event bus, and I can check my event bus, which is configured here. No, sorry, it's not here. I need to jump into my logs. You can see I'm not exactly an expert in this console. I need to go into something called CloudWatch, which is storing logs for me. The way I'm going to do the demo is I've just logged the incoming event in my CloudWatch account, just storing logs. And in there, I have normally a log group, which will capture my incoming event here. So if I look at my logs, I should be seeing my message probably in here. Yep. Let me expand this. And this is hello Salesforce. Yes, it's here. So that's the platform event that was received on the AWS side. So I didn't do anything with it. I just logged directly the output here. But I just shared how you can do this bidirectional communication. Let me quickly finish with the slides. So we saw how we can do the bidirectional communication. What's important here is that there's no code that is required to do this. It's only a bit of configuration. And honestly, this is super fast. To establish the bidirectional configuration, I would say it takes less than 20 minutes to do this. So it's very cool. What's also nice about Event Relay to the difference of Salesforce Connect is that it's free. Everybody can use it. The only limit is the number of events that you send through it. There's a daily limit, so make sure you don't exceed this. A little word of warning since we're in Europe here. For now, up till winter 24, the event processing is happening in the US. So the Event Relay system is based in the US, so the message would have to travel back to the US and back to Europe. But starting with the next release spring, so it's going to be, I think, in February, we'll open some service to also have a EU Event Relay configuration, so you can have more local and faster events. Final word of warning, one thing that is also different, when you look at the same message, here this is a screenshot of the same message, but received on two different places. On your left, you see the AWS message. On the right, you see the Salesforce message. And you'll see that the payload is identical, but the metadata that is around it is different. First, on the AWS side, you have in the source of the event, you have the Salesforce org ID if you need it. You also have the ID here of the custom event channel that you declared. And you can find it also in full text on the Salesforce side. And you have the event API name here, and let me just finish quickly, the schema ID. The schema ID is generally not used often. It's only if your platform event schema changes. For example, if you add a new field to your platform event, the platform event still has the same name, sample in my case, but the schema ID will change if it gets another field. So that's something you want to track if you modify the schema of your platform events. And yeah, that's about it. We saw the two different options to integrate with AWS. This is a rough, I would say, summary of this. You have two different options. One is event-driven. The other one is based on virtualization. The two are non-exclusive. You can use them in combination. And for the main difference also is pricing. The Salesforce Connect option is based on a license, so you have to use it with a special license. You can try it out easily with a developer edition. It's free for developer edition, so you can already experiment with it, see if it's valuable or not. And if you need more, well, you can contact your account executives. And yeah, you can try it out today. Everything is available, and I'm going to leave you with some resources so that you can get hands-on. This QR code here is a summary of all the resources I've assembled today, links to documentation, blog posts, videos, and it's a great summary of what I shared. And I'll be taking questions if you have any. Thank you. Wow, no questions? No. I'm sure there are questions. Go ahead.
I will try to speak English. Okay, from Salesforce to AWS platform, okay, I know you could push the data with the flows or Apex, but in the other way, how the AWS platform would push the data back? Is it a program like Python?
Yes. So AWS ecosystem has a number of ways to do this. You can use for example, a Lambda in the language of your choice, whether it's Python or another. And really, it's like an SDK that is part of the AWS ecosystem. You have access to the event bus. And you can even use the event bus internally in AWS. It's not only for external things. It can communicate between the different AWS services. So I'm not an AWS expert, but you can do it with code, and you can also do it with more declarative tools. I think there are plenty of tutorials on how to send an event on the AWS side. Any other questions?
I'll take one.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. I'm here for this.
Okay. Hello. Okay. So it's a hypothetical question. Suppose if I'm putting out a new project in place, do you think that the platform events and the Salesforce Connect might replace all other options of integrations? If it's a new project, like if I'm using the Postgres on the AWS side, and if it's a new project on Heroku and stuff, so do you think that it's 80% possible that we could use platform events and Salesforce Connect for doing that?
Well, I would say you have to think about certain things, like do you need access to your data all the time, or do you only need to react to events? Because when you work with platform events, data is not persisted on the Salesforce side. So if you need to do something like reporting, you cannot do reporting only with platform events. So that's kind of the limitation, sorry. But if it's just transactional and you just need to send information back and forth, maybe, yeah, platform events are a good option. It really depends on the use case you want to achieve here. If you need also if regular users need access to data, well, you can't really do this with just events. You need to store data. Like if you need record pages, things like that, you can't really just wait to fire a platform event to get data back, or that's not the kind of thing you can do. So if you do only event-driven integration, you may need to do a bit of copying data around. That may be a limitation depending on the project. Yeah. However, one thing that I want to add is that if you work with events-driven integration, one thing that is very nice about it is that it's broadcast. So if you want to reach multiple sources, if you have multiple systems that work together, then events are a good solution because we can have multiple subscribers to events. Yes, one more? Do we have time for one more?
Do you have plan to integrate with other cloud provider like Azure or Google?
So for the moment, there's no out-of-the-box connector for this. However, let me go very quickly to the first slide there. Yeah. So for the moment, there's no dedicated connector for this. And the reason why we have the AWS connectors here is that we have an ongoing partnership with Amazon. So we've been working with them to support this scenario. But if you do need to connect with something that is not in there, you can always create a custom Apex adapter. And with Apex, you can integrate with anything. I, for example, used this in a little demo scenario in which I connected to the GitHub APIs. So I was able to look at my GitHub issues, GitHub PRs, just like if it were Salesforce records. So it's a bit of code, of course. You have to do it yourself and maintain it, but you can work with other sources if you really want to. One last question, maybe? Or are we done? All right. Well, if you have additional questions, I'll be here, and feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. I also have a number of things that I want to hang out. I have, for the first few people who come here, I have a few little swags that I want to hang out. So just come over here, and I'll give you a little present there. I have a really cute Codeys, Lego Codeys that I want to hand out. I have only a few of these. I don't have for everyone, but let me hand those out. Thanks.